Welcome, board gamers. Today we're going to be talking all about allies.
Okay.
Allies were released as part of an expansion in the General's Handbook 2017, and to put it really simply for new players, allies allow you to take a main faction keyword and then have a allied contingent with it without kind of ruining what your army is. So let me put it really simply. Say I had a Beast Claw Raiders army, right? Traditionally, before the General's Handbook 2017, you had to have every single model in your army have the shared keyword of Beast Claw Raiders if you wanted to do that. What allies allow you to do is, based on the size of your game, up to 20% of your army can be something else. They have predetermined who can be your allies and things like that, but you can take up to, say you're playing a 2,000 point game, you can get like 400 points of allies. So I can have my Beast Claw Raiders and I can have 400 points of regular ogres, meaning they can have cheaper foot dudes, right? And they're still beefy and bulky, and they're still ogres, but they still play into this game without losing my Beast Claw Raider faction keyword, so I still get all the buffs, benefits, and artifacts from Beast Claw Raiders. And that's putting it really simply. Now, some factions get more options than others, obviously. Kind of big trends that you see is everyone in the Order Grand Alliance can take Stormcast Eternals. They pair with everyone, which makes sense. They're kind of the poster boys. If you're looking at Chaos, it seems to be that everyone of a Chaos God can mingle together, like all Nurgle stuff can pretty much work together. Which includes Pestilence, Skaven stuff, all those kinds of things. They all pair together really well. It's a very smart idea for not only cross-promoting and sales and things like that on GW's part, but also allowing people to take broader lists with more freedom while still maintaining the things that make our armies unique. Now, one of the things you'll see is that there is, like I said, a allies point limit based on the size of the game you're playing. So, for example, Vanguard, it's a 1,000 point game, you take 200 points of allies. Now, if you play games of your own custom size, a good rule of thumb that kind of matches all of the pre-decided point sizes they have is that it's 20% of your army list. So if you are a fan of 1,500 or 1,250, whatever you like to play in your gaming group, just do 20% of that and you have your allies number. One thing to keep in mind, so say we're going to go back to our Beast Claw Raiders example, where 80% of my list is Beast Claw Raiders and 20% is Gutbusters War Tribe, okay, which is just the basic ogre guys. Any faction bonuses I get for Beast Claw Raiders do not apply to the ogres because they don't have the same keyword. They're allowed to be a part of the army, they don't nullify my keyword, but they don't benefit from it. So that's really important. So any range abilities or buffs or auras, anything like that, that affect Beast Claw Raiders do not affect the other guys. They don't get any universal special rules for being a Beast Claw Raider, nothing like that. So that's extremely important to understand that even though these two factions blend together really well now, they didn't become part of that army. This is great because what it does is it allows you to still have separation in your forces. You can still mingle it up a little bit, but it still retains the kind of the essence of what your main faction is still going to be all about. What I think is really fun and flavorful in the Chaos side specifically is how the demons work together. By that I mean, for example, Blades of Khorne. They can take all of the kind of generic Slaves of Darkness and Everchosen, things like that. They can also pair with Nurgle stuff, but they can also do any Chaos stuff that doesn't have Slaanesh word, because Khorne hates Slaanesh, which is just a really simple thing that they put in. They didn't have to, but it works out great thematically on the tabletop. I'm interested that they have Nurgle being a kind of an ally, but not some other ones. The fact that they each play off each other like that is really fun. And as the narrative shifts in the campaign books, they can also do that because those gods are always making alliances and breaking them and things like that. So you can have stories evolve over time, and all you're doing is changing a little sentence there. Now, honestly, I think the biggest winner of the Allies Matrix is the Death faction. Because before this, the Death was struggling, I'm going to be honest with you. The reason is because if you go with a specific sub-faction, say Death Rattle, you lose so many things by doing that. You lose access to wizards, the Necromancer buffs skeletons out the nose, and so it was just hard to have a Death Rattle themed thing and still enjoy the depth of the game in terms of synergies and things like that that you could. What Allies allows you to do is throw in things like that, right? You throw in a Necromancer, so you don't miss out opportunities in your gameplay. Instead, you enhance them, which is, I think, is really the goal that they were going for, and I think that they succeeded. Again, so many of the sub-factions in Death are all summonable, right? Everything can be summoned, but there's such a small range of miniatures that can summon, and a lot of them are in those kind of obscure factions, like whatever the Necromancer and the Mortis Engine are a faction. Like, that's not a faction in terms of building an army, but if you can ally that in with anything, it works with everything. You can also fill the holes that other people are missing. So Flesh Eater Courts are actually fairly well set. They have a good mixture of a lot of little Gribblies and some beefy bodies and things like that. But if you think about something like Soul Blight, where a lot of the elite vampire troops and things like that, they can really do with some crap troops, right? Like, they can do with some skeleton warriors and things like that. And of course you could summon them in before, but it's different when you can buff them straight from the field. Turn one, have, you know, Night Haunt cavalry go hop on an objective, things like that. You get options, and options are really what Death needed for the longest time. Now, while I will say that Death is the rules winner of the Allies Matrix, or kind of rule set, what I will say is that Destruction, I think, is the winner in terms of thematic. Because here's the thing, back in Warhammer Fantasy Battles, before a lot of our time, and I played Fantasy Battles, I had a great time, but like Orcs and Goblins was a faction, and within that there were Moonclan Grots, and within that there were all kinds of Grots, and there were different types of orcs, and there were, you know, savage orcs, there were the regular ones, there, you know what I mean, there was a lot of things in a faction. And so when they all got separated into a bajillion sub-factions, we lost a lot of that flavor. But having allies allows you to really build those things on the battlefield in matched play specifically, and have that same thematic feel. A lot of the factions that we loved being part of one army before are back together through the Allies Matrix, and so that really makes a great deal of sense to us as players who came from fantasy into now, but then also a lot of flavor is added for new players who didn't know that these things used to be together. And one last note in the order section, like I said before, Stormcast can work with any order army, which is really, really cool, that you can sub in. A lot of the order armies have a lot of little dudes, like Free Guild, any of the elf factions, they kind of rely on smaller dudes. But being able to sprinkle in something with a little more beef, a little more bulk, is super really nice. It really is. So you can kind of diversify there. In addition to Stormcast being able to work with everyone, in order, you notice a lot of the races that have been split up are now kind of back together, like all the stuff that used to be Dark Elves in fantasy. So you have the Black Swords, what are they called? Darkling Covens, Daughters of Cain, things like that. They all work together now. Same thing with the High Elves and the Wanderers. A lot of the elf factions intermingle really well, but like, it's not every elf can work with every elf type thing. It's all the Dark Elf stuff can, and it can also mingle with a lot of what used to be High Elves and Wood Elves, things like that. So there's a lot of crossover. With those factions in specific, you have to be very attentive to which allies they can and cannot take. And really, that kind of covers the concept of allies. Now, if you have more questions, I'd love to see them down below. Click subscribe, leave any questions or comments, what your thoughts are on the allies thing. Some people that I read online, without giving much of a reason, weren't enthused about it. I think they kind of saw it going the way that 40k allies did back in the day, where people just started to mishmash armies into things that didn't make sense. But what I really think the point of allies is allowing you to diversify your army without losing the benefits and the flavor of the army that you truly, truly love. So I think it is a all-around bonus for the game. Of course, there are ways to abuse it, just like there is any way to abuse anything in matched play. However, I really think that the choices that they made, as far as I can tell so far, are all super thematic. They make sense in terms of armies that were dispersed are now coming back together a little bit. So it's good for old gamers who loved having things work together. It's great for new gamers who just want to experience new models and tactics and things like that. I think it's an overall win, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you like this video, I would really, really ask that you share it, either to any kind of social media thing you have, Facebook groups, forums, anything like that. I'm really trying to get the channel up above 2,000 subscribers, and you can help me do that. If you want to help me in a more personal way, click the link down below to the 2 Plus Tough store. Me and a friend of mine have personally designed a Realm of Death gaming mat that we absolutely love, and we think you'll love it too. There's a special going on right now. If you're on the blog or anything like that, you get a discount code IAMTOUGH, and you can get 10% off your order, and it ships anywhere in the US. So all the proceeds of that go directly to support me as a content producer, so I can buy cool books and review them. And share that content back to you guys, and you get a cool gaming mat. So thank you guys so much for all your support. I really appreciate everything, all the comments, all the feedback. I love it. I use all your comments as inspiration for future videos. I read them all, respond to as many as I can, and I'm just so appreciative of you, your time, and your company. Thank you, and happy wargaming.